warm Saturday, late July 1998, amidst the quietude of a pre-dawn walk with her golden retriever, Susan Greer's life takes an unexpected turn. A jogger clad only in bare feet catches her attention, and a chance inquiry about his peculiar footwear sparks a conversation that will forever alter her path. This jogger, Rick Rescola, is a writer whose life story is as captivating as his chosen attire. A seasoned soldier, Rick bears the invisible scars of war, having fought in the jungles of Africa and the rice paddies of Vietnam. Yet, despite battling a relentless form of cancer, he exudes an infectious zest for life that Susan, a woman twice divorced and yearning for connection, finds utterly irresistible. Susan, with her refined tastes and cultivated appreciation for art, seems an unlikely companion for the ruggedly individualistic Rick, who seeks solace in nature and draws strength from Zen Buddhist principles. Yet their differences become the very foundation of their bond. As they went into their newfound passion for dance, their graceful twirls across the polished floor of the Arthur Murray studio became a metaphor for the elegant dance of their burgeoning love. Together, they took off on a whirlwind exploration of shared experiences, venturing into art galleries that ignite Susan's artistic spirit and exploring historic sites that stir Rick's fascination with the past. Susan introduces Rick to the captivating world of museums and antique shops, while he, in turn, guides her on nature walks that soothe her soul and hikes that challenge her spirit. Both Susan and Rick carry the emotional baggage of past hardships. Susan's two failed marriages have left her wary of love, while Rick's battles have etched a stoic resilience on his soul. Yet, in their chance encounter, they sense a fated connection, as if the universe in its grand design has brought them together after their long and winding journeys. They are soulmates, not because they mirror each other's personalities, but because their differences create a harmonious canvas, a beautiful blend of pragmatism and passion, of artistic sensibilities and rugged strength. Rick, haunted by the ghosts of war and battling a relentless form of cancer, found solace in Susan's gentle nature and unwavering support. They moved in together, creating a new life in a townhouse with large windows overlooking a tranquil pond. Gone were Susan's collection of antiques and china, replaced by simple, comfortable furniture that reflected Rick's desire for a fresh start. One day while unpacking, Susan stumbled upon a framed shadow box filled with medals, a silver star, a bronze star with oak leaf cluster, a purple heart, and the Vietnamese cross of gallantry. These were evidence of Rick's courage and valor, a stark contrast to the unassuming man she knew. When she hung the display on the wall, Rick surprised her with his discomfort. "I don't want any of this stuff out," he said, his voice uncharacteristically terse. Susan, ever the pragmatist, didn't understand. These were badges of honor, a recognition of his service. But for Rick, they were a constant reminder of the horrors he had witnessed and the friends he had lost. Glimpses of Rick's hidden depths continued to emerge. He downplayed his military experiences, refusing to discuss the details of his service. When a war movie came on TV, he'd grow withdrawn, his gaze fixed on a distant point. Susan realized there were layers to Rick that he wasn't ready to share, a well of pain buried beneath his easy smile. The key to Rick's past turned out to be a photograph tucked away in a dusty box. It showed a young Rick, barely 25, clad in a military uniform, grinning alongside another soldier with a mischievous glint in his eyes. That soldier was Dan Hill, and the inscription on the back revealed they had met in northern Rhodesia, two peas in a pod drawn together by a shared love for adventure and a military life. Susan encouraged Rick to reconnect with Dan. Hesitant at first, Rick eventually reached out to his old friend. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, a tribute to the enduring bond forged in the crucible of war. Dan, now living in St. Augustine, Florida, readily agreed to visit. Their reunion was an emotional affair. Stories tumbled out, punctuated by laughter and tears. Susan listened intently, piecing together the fragments of Rick's past. She learned about their fight against a communist insurgency in northern Rhodesia, the camaraderie that formed between them in the face of danger, and their daring escapades that tested the limits of their courage. Dan's tales painted a vivid picture of a young Rick, fearless, resourceful, and always ready with a wisecrack to lighten the mood. But there was another side to Rick's military experience, a darker side that he had kept hidden from Susan. Dan's visit also brought to light the horrors Rick had faced in Vietnam. As they recounted battles fought and friends lost, Susan saw a glimpse of the young soldier who had carried the weight of command on his shoulders, the man who had comforted his dying men and whispered reassurances in their final moments. The war had left indelible scars on Rick's soul, ones that Susan, with her gentle touch, would try to heal. Over time, Susan came to understand that Rick's wartime experiences were a defining part of who he was. The courage he displayed in battle, the compassion he showed his men, and the strength he found to carry on. These were all qualities that Susan admired. She also saw the pain that lurked beneath the surface, the nightmares that haunted his sleep, and the moments of quiet despair. But Susan was determined to be there for Rick, to offer him love and support, and to help him find peace. Both Rick and Dan witnessed horrific events and lost many comrades. After the war, they returned to the US and stayed close, sharing a deep understanding forged in the crucible of combat. Dan even converts to Islam, and his knowledge helps Rick analyze the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Rick, suspecting a Muslim involvement, pushes for better security measures at the towers, foreshadowing the events of 9/11. The crisp autumn air hung heavy that morning, the kind that promised a clear day in New York City. But for Rick Rescola, head of security for Morgan Stanley in the South Tower, a knot of unease tightened in his gut. It wasn't just the usual pre-work jitters. Rick had spent years in the military, serving in some of the world's most volatile regions. He knew the chilling weight of anticipation that preceded danger. For years, Rick had voiced concerns about the vulnerability of the World Trade Center to a terrorist attack. The 1993 bombing had only solidified his fears. He'd seen the blueprints, the sheer scale of the buildings, and he knew an evacuation from the upper floors would be a monumental task. So Rick took action. He didn't wait for official mandates or fire drills coordinated by the Port Authority. Rick spearheaded his own evacuation plan, meticulously crafting a strategy to get everyone out quickly and safely. He drilled his colleagues at Morgan Stanley twice a year, his booming voice echoing through the stairwells as he barked instructions and led them down the escape routes. Some found him a bit excessive, a touch theatrical with his booming voice and ever-present megaphone. But Rick was relentless. He called it his obsession, this unwavering commitment to his colleagues' safety. Then came the morning of September 11th. The first plane hit the North Tower, and the tremors traveled across the Sky Bridge to the South Tower. Confusion reigned, but Rick knew exactly what to do. He barked into his megaphone, his voice cutting through the growing panic. Evacuate. Evacuate now. It wasn't a request, it was an order. Despite conflicting messages from Port Authority officials telling people to stay put, Rick knew every precious second counted. He ignored the official instructions and prioritized the safety of the people he knew. Floor by floor, he led them down the stairs, his booming voice a beacon in the growing darkness and dust. He drilled them on the evacuation routes like a seasoned coach, his booming Welsh and Cornish songs echoing through the stairwells, keeping spirits high. He knew some people wouldn't take the stairs, wouldn't believe the urgency, so he sent younger, stronger colleagues ahead, urging them to physically pull those who hesitated out of the building. As the last tendrils of smoke began to lick their way down the stairwells, Rick made a final sweep through the floors. He wouldn't leave anyone behind, not as long as he had a breath in his body. Just when he thought everyone was out, a young woman emerged, pale and terrified. Without hesitation, Rick ushered her down the remaining stairs, his hand a steady presence on her back. Finally, with the South Tower groaning ominously above, Rick emerged into the open air. He took a deep breath, the acrid smoke stinging his lungs. He had gotten most of his people out, but the knot of unease in his gut remained. He knew some hadn't made it, but there were others still inside, trapped and unaware. Rick looked back at the towering inferno, a silent vow forming on his lips. He wouldn't abandon them. He re-entered the South Tower, his silhouette disappearing into the smoke and debris. No one saw him emerge. Rick Rescola is presumed to have died in the collapse of the South Tower, a hero who gave his life for the people he swore to protect. Weeks later, a memorial service for the victims of 9/11 was held. Among those honored was Rick Rescola, the unassuming security chief who would become a hero. His story is a testament to the power of preparation, leadership, and selflessness. He was remembered as a man who stared into the abyss and refused to blink. But Rick's heroism wasn't solely defined by his actions on that fateful day. It stemmed from years of quiet preparation, a dogged determination to ensure his colleagues were prepared for the unthinkable. He knew that in a crisis, clear communication and practiced routines could save lives, and that's exactly what happened. Thanks to Rick's relentless drills and unwavering focus on safety, the vast majority of Morgan Stanley employees working in the South Tower that day escaped unharmed.